Hello, my name is Zericc, and I'm a mod for Board Boosters. Board Boosters is a group of speedrunners with a goal of bringing love to games that have small communities and few posted speedruns. Every month, or every second month, we choose a game to speedrun as a group. For the month of April 2025, we're speedrunning the Gnorp Apologue. The Gnorp Apologue is a game where you help small beings called Gnorps get rich. It's a unique, incremental game with interesting upgrades and visuals to match the numbers. To discuss the game, I'm joined by the game's developer, Myco. Myco, thank you for joining me.
Glad to be here.
Now, I always worry about this when I'm chatting with someone new. Can you just confirm for me that Myco is how you pronounce that, and that Gnorp is how you intend that to be pronounced as well?
Yes, Myco is pronounced Myco, and it's from a bacteria called Mycoplasma. And Gnorp is indeed pronounced Gnorp.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. I'm here in Canada, and there's a lot of companies that end in co. I can't think of it off the top of my head, of course, but it's all because they used to be called company and they just shortened it to co. And I thought Myco might be my company because you're like a small dev, but it's interesting to know. Before we dive in to talk about the game, I do just want to mention, because I'm very new to the Gnorp Apologue. It was selected for April 2025 for our group to run, and I hadn't played the game before that. A lot of our folks are coming in new to playing the game, and I just want to say, you seem to have captured like a level of cuteness, or just like a very like a vibe with the Gnorp Apologue that I think is probably really difficult for some game developers to capture, and that some intend to, and they don't quite hit the mark. So, do you feel like that's the response you've gotten as well? That it's very charming, and you've captured charm in a bottle in a way that's kind of probably difficult to do.
I think I tried to. Part of the reason why I chose to do pixel art for the Gnorp Apologue is that I'm not really an artist. So my choice was to just, make something simple and make something just with what I can do with my own capabilities, and just don't do anything too fancy. And then I like minimalism, and then it sort of just ended up becoming that style of minimalism and just cuteness, I guess.
Fascinating. Now, I have played a little bit of the game, and I know that at a certain point you can get some cosmetics, which I think were developed by the community, or they were submitted by the community. But are you saying that for the most part you did all the art for all of the game itself?
Yes, all the art besides the hats I did myself.
Wow. Okay, that's really cool. And what, like in the beginning of all of this, and I know a lot of folks who've played games their whole lives, they sort of contemplate, oh, maybe I'll make a game one day, maybe I'll, do something along those lines. What drove you to make the Gnorp Apologue?
Well, I've always wanted to make games. I've always been fascinated by games, and I've always played them. And I like to analyze systems and how things work on an inside level, kind of. And that's sort of what made me want to make a game. But what's funny about the Gnorp Apologue actually is that it just got started out as a little toy that I made for my girlfriend, like during one night of just random coding in JavaScript. So I just ended up making a little game where you hit the rock, and then there was a conveyor belt, and then Gnorps would come collect the shards that flew out. And then one day I was like, okay, I want to make an actual game. And then I'm going to pick this little toy project that I made in one day and try to make an incremental game out of it. And it was going to be a 2-week project, and it ended up having a total duration of about 3 years.
Fascinating. Like as a player now, it's fascinating to hear that at one point there was a conveyor belt, because my mind goes to, oh, I would love to see that as a part of the game. And had you made a game before that, or was this the first one where you sort of saw it to completion?
Part of the reason why I was very insistent of finishing the Gnorp Apologue was because I was, okay, this is the game I will actually finish, but there's been a bunch that I started with, but they were just toy projects, like how Gnorp started, and nothing really serious, or nothing at all really, nothing that made it past a prototyping stage. So in reality, this was my first game, and it was a game that I used to learn a new programming language called Rust. So it was also our journey in learning that, not just developing the game itself and learning how to do that.
Interesting. Now we're here to talk about the Gnorp Apologue from a speedrunning perspective. And I mean, I am fascinated about anything really you can share about the game. So don't hold back for in any regard, right?
Of course.
But the game does have a speedrun mode. So you must have put some thought into the game as a speedrun, like as you were putting it together. Can you tell us a bit about how you expected speedrunners to approach the game, or why you put that mode in the first place?
So the mode was kind of spontaneously put in, I guess you could say. I've watched a lot of AGDQs in my life. Not so much right now, but I have watched 4 or 5 of them, and I've always been fascinated by speedruns. There's a sort of mentality you have to have in order to do it, where you can just sort of press on, keep going, just fixing those tiny errors to get the best time possible. So from like a mindset perspective, it's very fascinating to me. Like how can you do that? How can you be so dedicated? So I decided to just see if maybe Gnorp would fit with the speedrun, and I thought it would, because it's kind of like a different game where you're not necessarily worried all about the mechanics of the game. It's not about getting things on a frame perfect timing. Instead, you have to strategize a little bit more, perhaps. You have to think a little bit about what your sequencing is going to be in terms of like how you get to the last part of the game and the ending itself. So I thought it would be cool to try, and really, like, it was something that I put in within the last week or so, and I just thought I could do it, and so I did it.
Interesting. And have you speedrun the game at all yourself?
I tried once, and I think I got to like 40 minutes, but I was like a couple of days after release. And, it's kind of sad as a developer. Then when you play your own games, then it can be hard to enjoy them yourself. You can enjoy them on a sort of surface level and be like, yes, this seems like something that people would enjoy, and I'm really happy with that. But in terms of actually enjoying it for myself, being able to see the game as though I didn't develop it is very difficult for me. So I haven't speedrun it very much, actually. But I am making a new update, which will also include a speedrun mode for that specific mode that will be included in the game. And I will try to definitely speedrun that as well.
Interesting. Can you tell us a bit more about the update? I actually had intended to ask you about that, but I understand that there's some changes to talents and like a talent plus system. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot of choices in Norp, and I wanted to make an expansion, a mini expansion, which is, I guess, a little bit more than a mini expansion at this point, where you had more choices, more things to do, more things to think about. Really, like some of the feedback I've gotten lately has been like, don't make it simpler, don't hold back, make it more complicated. I want to think about like all the permutations in the game, and I enjoy that aspect, so I want to do more of that. And because the base game is pretty like definite, it has an ending, and it is sort of its own complete journey, then I thought, okay, I would make a mode where things are a little bit different, where you have a new system in the form of a talent plus system, where you can sort of double down on what that individual talent does, or maybe you can have it do something entirely different, and just try to sort of enhance what I think at least is the best part of the game with the talent system, with that, which allows you to really sort of increase your shard output and your shard collection rate and that kind of stuff.
That's really interesting to hear. Do you think that at this point in the game, with what's released now, that players have come up with talent synergies or ability combinations that you hadn't predicted when you created the game?
There was a couple of things that I didn't actually predict. Not in terms of the talent synergies, because I did spend a lot of time going through all of those possibilities in my mind, and I think I got them all. I haven't seen anything be like successful that I didn't know about, kind of. But there's one thing that I didn't predict in terms of how you play the game, and that was how you can swap arrows. You know, you can swap them to fire and then to Cybe and then back to fire, or perhaps ice to Cybe and then back to ice and then Cybe again. I didn't actually think about that people would do that. You know, that is not something that I actually thought anyone would want to do in order to optimize their run. So that was surprising to me because I would not do that because that is boring, you know. But that, yeah,
There is an interview. I mean, less than an interview, more of just a quick like video, a testimonial by the game developer Bennett Foddy, who created Getting Over It. It's a game where you're like you have a hammer and you have to climb a mountain. It's a bit odd, but in that sort of testimonial, Bennett Foddy says that the game designer's role is to take a look at a game from all different angles and to make sure that it works sort of no matter what's happening in the game. And that the speedrunner's role is almost the exact opposite, where you have to just make it work in one specific way as best as it possibly can. And so it breaks down everything that the designer is doing and it sort of reverse engineers it to do the opposite of what the designer might have intended.
yeah,
But and it's interesting to hear that with the arrows. Yeah, as a speedrunner, you know when you play the game the first time as an idle game, you know you might like to be totally honest. When I played the Gnorp Apologue the first time, I left it running all night long so that I could accumulate lots of shards to make purchases in the game or whatnot. But when you're speedrunning, you have to do it really quickly. So you have to optimize like menuing to make it go a lot faster. That's interesting to hear that was something that you hadn't thought folks would come up with.
yeah. I guess I didn't expect it to be that effective. I suppose it's not something you think about. I guess you know when you put speedrunning into the game at the last 2 weeks, you don't think about those small details. I guess.
Absolutely, and I will say, so we have at Board Boosters, we take a pretty like broad look at a game when we want to do speedruns of it, and so we have folks who are speedrunning the speedrun mode, and folks who are speedrunning just the game itself, not in speedrun mode, and we have a runner, at the time of recording right now, David TKI, who's been able to run to like from the start of the game without speedrun mode to the finish in under an hour.
Yeah, that is very surprising. That is a crazy time.
Yeah. It's pretty fascinating to see what folks can do when they're like motivated on that one specific goal. Do you think there's any tricks or synergies in the game now that speedrunners should explore, or that folks might not have figured out yet?
I think it's pretty well explored at this point, from what I've seen at least. There's always something to be discovered, as it seems. You have games from the 1990s, and then someone discovers a cool new tech trick with it, where you can shave off like 10 seconds. Maybe there is something like that in Norp 2, but I'm not sure what that would be right now. But who knows?
All right, and I know you're working on developments in the game right now, but is there anything that's in store for you in the future as a developer beyond the Gnorp Apologue?
Oh yeah, that's a big question, of course. And for now, I'm focused on making the epilogue update, and I had, I suppose, grand plans, to make it a trilogy, I suppose, of games. That was my original kind of thought, where I would make a sequel expansion for the game called Gnorps in Space, and then I would make a third game that would sort of be the culmination of the story of the Gnorps. But now I have readjusted my plans a little bit, because when you have just finished a game and people are playing it and people are loving it, and then you're like sitting there and being like, why do people love this? I hate it because I've been working on it for so long. So you kind of want to do something different, right? You want to make a different game. but now that some time has passed, some the chips have fallen and all of that. I kind of think that maybe it's time to rethink Gnorp, the Gnorp Apologue, and be honest with myself. What did I do well and what did I do poorly? And that has sort of re-energized me in terms of the core concept of the game itself, and it makes the Epilogue update really exciting for me because I think it will be a really cool update that people will be able to play and speed run in an entirely new way. And then after that, I think I will make a new game called Gnorps in Space.
Fascinating. Now, a question that speedrunners are going to have that we might not have an opportunity to ask otherwise. When you make this update, is it going to totally replace what exists as the Gnorp Apologue, or is it going to be something that adds on to it? Like, will the speedruns that we have now still be valid, I guess, so to speak, or will they not? Like, would you not be able to run that same sort of run?
My plan is that it will be entirely valid. The current implementation will be that there will be a base game mode, right? That's the one you play, right? And then you have the speedrun mode, and then there's the new mode, the epilogue mode, right? Where things are a little different, and then you have access to new mechanics and talents and all that. And then finally there will be a epilogue speedrun mode, and that of course will include the speedrun mechanics in the speedrun mode that already exists.
That's it. That's exactly what folks would be asking. So thank you for that. That's very clear. Now I have a couple questions that are less focused on speedruns, but they're things that came up for me when I was playing the game, and I think you might be the only person who can shed light on this at all.
Yeah, sure.
One thing is with the term apologue. So when I was introduced to the game, it's very charming, it's very cute. I didn't realize an apologue was a thing. Like I know that there's stories with a moral, that sort of thing, but I never heard this term apologue before. And it's an apologue is obviously just a short story with a moral. Now, as I was playing the game, I was trying to figure out, what is the moral of this story? Like, what is it trying to tell you? And, there's a part of me that says, oh, it must be about overconsumption. The Gnorps are like mining out the one resource that their society relies on, whatever they can run out of it. Or is it about, the collective strength of the Gnorps working together? Like, and you don't have to share it if you think you want to leave it a bit of a mystery, but what is it that we're meant to get out of this as the sort of moral of this story?
Well, first of all, the game was actually called something different initially. It was called the Gnorp Parable. And a parable is pretty similar to an apologue, but I chose to name it slightly differently because you have the Stanley Parable, or Stanley Parable as it's called. Mm-hmm. And I figured, okay, that's a little bit too similar. Maybe they think there's some relation or whatever. So then I looked for a new word, and I ended up with apologue, which actually fit quite well because apologue is a fable or moral story that usually includes creatures, right? And Gnorps are kind of like creatures. In terms of the actual moral, I think that is a little bit up to the player. I think I have something in mind, of course, and I kind of want to develop the idea further in with the epilogue update and also Gnorps in Space. But yeah, I think I can leave it a little bit up to the player to decide.
Sounds good. Now, in the description for the game that you have on your website, it does, and I think I sort of mentioned this at the outset here, that the Gnorp Apologue is a game where you help small beings called Gnorps get rich. That's text from your website. How small are the Gnorps? Because they're, compared to a tree, they look about the size of a human in the game. But I'm curious.
Well, they're small on your screen, I suppose. I mean, I imagine them being about that size, about the size of your screen, and then they just have small trees.
Ah, okay. Okay, that's good to know. All right. And is there, I just, before we sort of like wrap up here or come to a close, is there anything about the game or like the response to the game that has surprised you, the way that folks have come to it, the player base, anything like that?
I think all of it is a surprise, to be honest. The game didn't have very many wish lists at the start, or at the release of the game. And I know that's a metric that a lot of game developers use to like predetermine the success of their game and how many copies it was going to sell. And for me, like Gnorp initially started as something that I wanted to have as a stepping stone. This was a game that I wanted to make in 2 weeks or 1 week or 1 month or 3 months, as it ended up being, and then eventually 3 years. A stepping stone for something better, a new game, something cooler, something with better mechanics and better art. And then Norp just ended up taking quite a while. And then when I released it, I was of course hopeful that people would recognize it, that it was a cool game, because that was my metric, kind of like when I will release this game when I think I have done a decent job. And then my hope was that a few people would agree and think, yeah, you did a good job, this is a cool game, this has merit, right? And then the game kind of just took off a little bit more than expected, a lot more. So it has been a little bit surprising and challenging as a journey as a whole, because it's hard for me to still consider myself a game developer, kind of, right? That's what I am doing right now, and it's what I'm going to continue doing for quite a while, because it is really, really satisfying and really, really enjoyable. And it's just so fun to put your ideas into a game and have people enjoy that. Yeah, so it's been a journey. It's been very surprising, and I don't know if I would be able to predict everything that has happened with Norp, and yeah, it's cool.
Interesting. Now, but before we wrap up, I just want to give you a moment here. If there's any message you have for the players of the game, for speedrunners, of course, our group is that's who we are. But is there anything that you want to say to the folks who have who've been playing the game, or any other thing that you want to add on today?
Yeah, I would of course like to thank everyone who enjoys the game and who enjoys speedrunning the game. And like I said, I'm gonna introduce that new speedrunning mode, and I think it will be really fun to kind of re-explore the game that way, with all the new talents that will sort of change and modulate how you will be able to quickly reach the end of the game. And I'm just very appreciative of having a community that likes the game and plays the game, and yeah, they're so supportive and patient, because obviously I want to do more and for the game and the community. And yeah, just thank you to everyone who is patient and who plays the game and who likes the game and is looking forward to more of Norp itself.
Very good. Well, that's about all the time that we have today. Myco, I want to say thank you, big thank you for your time and for speaking to me today about this.
Yeah, thank you. It's been fun.